Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
Hello.
Hello. And we also have Dr. T.
Hi, guys.
What's up, T?
What's going on?
Not a whole lot. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach us info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Whew. I'm getting better at that, though. You know?
You're still running out of breath every time.
I know. That's my cardiovascular inadequacies.
You still go on your walks?
What do you mean?
I don't know. You should just like walk down the street randomly and we'd be like, where's Tom? Give you a call and you're like, I'm 4 blocks down.
Yeah, I
Getting
go
my
on
steps
them.
in.
I go on them generally before anybody gets here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right.
I walk down to the light, make a right, and walk up through it's kind of like the hood up in there. It's like projects or something. I don't know.
It's enough blocks away from here, though, to be safe.
Yeah. But I go first thing in the morning when I get here. It's about 1,800 steps there and back. And then I sit on my ass the rest of the day. Yeah, so I'm busting out about a solid 4,000 to 5,000 steps a day. How about you?
I have no idea.
What about you, T?
I have no idea. I don't track either.
You don't?
No.
Well, I thought you would, being a doctor and all.
No, I know I get it. I mean, 4 days a week, my husband and I run 4 miles with our dog in the morning before we even work out.
Do you? Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know.
He's a crazy dog. He needs exercise.
You literally run with your dog 4 miles.
He can run. It's a husky, so they're
No, I don't doubt that he can.
Yes.
You run 4 miles every morning 4 mornings out of the week, you and your husband.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Don't you have a golf cart?
We do have a golf court, but that's like our afternoon session for the dog because we're tired at that point. So we hold the leash and he runs on the side of the golf cart for another 3 miles. So he runs a lot.
Wow. So you run the 4 miles and then you come back and work out.
Yeah, but it's not high intensity. It'll just be like a lifting session. Like this morning when I talked to you, we had already finished our run and then we were back in the gym doing legs. Today's our leg day.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive.
So you definitely get 10,000 steps a day.
Probably.
I mean,
I would
4
hope
miles
so.
in and of itself is 10,000 steps, right?
Oh,
About
it's-
2,500 steps for a
I feel
mile.
like you're one of those people that doesn't need a lot of sleep to operate.
I go to bed every night at like 8:30.
That's
But I
amazing.
wake up at like 5. So how many hours is that? 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours.
Wow. You need to have a couple children. All right. Well, we're going to get into the episode, but I want to share a funny story in regards to sleeping. But I think what we discussed that we were going to do, and I think this is actually a very good idea. We've never done this before. We're going to somewhat role play a phone call. And Tambini's going to be the mom.
Yep.
And then Ben and I, we're going to pretend as if we're on speakerphone. Okay. So because normally it's like, you know, you call and it's obviously just one of us on the phone, but let's just say that this is a mom calling in. They found us on the podcast and they want to talk to both of us. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're looking to get their son or daughter into treatment. And then this is what a typical conversation would sound like with Ben and I on the phone. And we came up with some questions that are typical questions that either we think should be asked or they are always being asked. Okay. And some of them make sense and some of them don't make a lot of sense. And I'll break that down as we go. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Can I tell my story real quick?
Tell your sleep story, yes.
So last night I was watching the Steeler game.
Okay.
And the game came on at 4:30. Steelers lost. So football is officially over for me. I don't care about the rest of the season. And the Eagles lost, which I was very happy about that. And the Cowboys lost too. I was very happy about that. You're a Cowboy fan, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So sad.
But anyways, at any rate, the game was on. My kids were going bonkers, and Amanda was going bonkers. So we were like, just go watch something in our bedroom because we have a TV. We have a 55-inch TCL TV up on the wall. And they go to turn it on, and the TV's not working.
Uh-oh.
So I'm like freaking out because the TV in there isn't working, which means they're just going to continue to bug me. And I'm trying to watch the game, and I started getting angry. And I'm going in and out of the room, in between plays, in between downs and stuff, resetting the TV, unplugging the TV, watching YouTube shorts on how to fix and get the TV back to work. Long story short, the TV didn't turn on. The game ended at like 7:30, and my normal evening routine is put the kids down around 7:30, 8 o'clock, brush my teeth, do whatever, clean up the house a little bit. And then we're normally in bed by 9. But we watch the TV like for a rather long time, probably 2 hours
Wow.
a night, whether that's other YouTube stuff or we've been on a Reacher, the
Meaning
show.
to bring that up to you.
What?
How
Reacher?
cheesy that show is. But go ahead. That's a conversation for after the show.
That show is awesome.
I that guy's just so endearing. The main actor?
Yeah.
He's so cheesy. And I'm like, how could Tom recommend this? But then I just kind of got
But then you
sucked
get
in.
sucked in, and that's
don't know.
part of the role of him is to be that like cheesy badass guy,
It's so cheesy.
I've
But
watched
it's, like,
actually
I can't
a lot
help
of-
but watch it.
Have you seen it? No? Oh, you got to watch it.
I go to bed at 8:30.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
You should watch it.
Okay.
But anyways, the TV wasn't turning on, and we're like ready to go to bed, but I find like the TV's not working, so I'm like, what am I going to do? I went to sleep.
See?
I was sleeping by 9:30, Ben,
It's good for you.
and woke up at like 5:30.
And felt
and
amazing.
And went for a 4-mile run.
no. I woke up at 5:30, and I'm like, crap. What do I do now? Because if I wake up and I go out, if I leave my bedroom, I'm definitely going to wake up the kids, and then they're going to come out, and then forget it. So I went back to sleep and woke up at like 6:45. And at that point, I had 10 hours of sleep or something. And when you cross that threshold
It's too much.
of getting too much sleep. But anyways, I felt good about myself, about getting that much sleep. Ben,
You should do it more often.
I know. So I think we're going to leave the TV broken
Good.
for a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
More quality time together, too.
Yeah. Well, she was on her computer working all night.
Oh, okay.
So what time did you go to bed, Ben?
Last night,
Yeah.
pretty early, probably 9:30.
Fall asleep?
I sleep real bad. I can't stay asleep ever.
Really?
Never, ever, ever.
Why?
I don't know. I'm generally up about 5-6 times a night.
Ooh.
Oh,
no, not
no.
me.
Every night.
Maybe you should get some sleep medication.
Nah.
No? All right. You ready to
right.
do this?
I'm
Let's
ready.
do it.
All right. So we're going to, do you know the questions you're going to ask?
I have some. We'll just start role playing and then we can take it as we go.
Okay. All right. Ring, ring. Hello, this is Tom with Real Recovery Talk. How can I help you?
Hi, Tom. Calling in about my son. He's 27 years old and he uses alcohol and fentanyl.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
My name is Pam.
Hi, Pam. Pleasure to meet you. Let me ask you real quick. How'd you hear about us?
I watched the podcast actually
Oh, really? How long you been listening?
for about 4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. In the 4 years that you've been listening, any particular episodes that like stand out to you? No? Okay.
Yeah.
No, well, that's good. I'm glad you reached out. You said it was your 27-year-old son. Mm-hmm. Really? How long have you been struggling with his addiction?
Since he was a teenager, since he was like 16 years old.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow, long time. So who do you like better, me or Ben?
I like you both equally.
All right. Would you like me to get Ben on the phone?
Please.
All right. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Tom.
Ben, I got Pam on the line here. She's an avid listener of the podcast, and she has her son that she's looking to get some help for. Why don't you say hello?
All right, let's help her out.
You got to say hello.
Hello.
Hello, Pam.
Hello, Pam.
All right, so let's just get right into it then. Tell us a little bit about the situation.
So the situation is he's been using fentanyl for quite a few years. He's an IV drug user. And most recently, why I'm reaching out to you is because he's overdosed twice in the past 2 months. But he's also drinking as well, pretty much all day, every day. And he's tried to stop on his own, but every time he tries to stop, he gets really bad withdrawal. So he keeps drinking and he keeps using the opiates. And we're just at a point, we don't know where else to go. We've taken him to the hospital. The hospital will see him in the ER and give us a script for Ativan, and he comes home and he uses the script on top of still drinking and using fentanyl, and we don't know where else to go to get help. So we were wondering if you might be able to help us.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm sorry you're going through all that. You said that he's tried stopping before. From your perspective, how many times would you say that is?
Probably over 20 times in the
Really?
last 3 years.
20 times in the last 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think? Why do you think he hasn't been able to?
He just doesn't I feel like we don't really know who to go to, who to talk to. He doesn't have a pediatrician or a primary care doctor. I've looked up, I've Googled a lot of things, but there's just so much information out there that I don't know what to do with it. And every time he tries to stop, he starts withdrawing. So he starts using just to not feel sick. And it's really taking a toll on me because I don't like seeing him like this anymore. And we're financially supporting him. So we just want to get him some help.
So he lives with you guys. Mm-hmm. Does he work?
No, he does not.
Has he ever worked?
He's worked in the past, but nothing long term.
So no career, nothing.
No
kids.
No kids. Never went to college. At this point in his life, he's just, we need a change.
Right. Let me ask you something real quick. What prompted this phone call? You've been listening for 4 years now, but something had to have happened to make you reach out now.
I think the most recently was he's never overdosed before, and he's had the 2 overdoses, and that really scared us. We weren't around when it happened. Thankfully, he was with his quote unquote friends, who had Narcan to, bring him back. But it really scares us as his parents not knowing. But it did scare him a little bit because he's at that point now where if he keeps overdosing, we don't know what's going to happen.
So he's never been to treatment before?
Never been to treatment.
Do you think that if you gave him options to go to treatment, he would go?
I'm not sure. How would I navigate that?
Right. Ben, do you have any questions for Pam?
Yeah, that's a good question, how to navigate that. So a lot of times what I tell parents is you've got to ask yourself when it comes to his willingness, is he in a situation where he feels like he has to change? And I like that Tom asked you, where's he living? And you mentioned that you're financially supporting him. I always bring it back to my own shoes and my personal experience. Now, when I was drinking and using fentanyl, doing those same 2 things, I love doing those 2 things. They make me feel better. They get me outside of myself. Now, if I have a roof over my head, food in my belly, and some money in my pocket, do I really need to change? I'm getting to do what I want, which is my alcohol and my fentanyl. And with the situation as it is, all my needs are met. So what we want to try and do is create a situation where that using is becoming uncomfortable and no longer working for him. And have you drawn any boundaries with them at all and came forward and said the things that you're not willing to do any longer as long as this situation goes on?
We've tried to set boundaries, but we always tend to kind of go back on the things we say because the thought of him becoming homeless or being on the street or something worse, that really tears me up inside. So we've really tried, but I don't really know how to navigate setting those like full boundaries with him. He's been somewhat like receptive to it, but it seems like he always knows how to manipulate me, and he knows what to say or how to say things to behave for a little bit, but things always just revert back to this vicious cycle that we're in.
I'm glad this is coming up like this because a lot of times families will look at the situation like it's him that needs to get better. And I even very recently, I'll share this with you, had a mother that said, I wish my son would just get with the program. And then she followed up by, I'm going to my second Al-Anon meeting ever. The point is a lot of times what has to happen first is the family has to get with the program for the loved one to get with the program. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so...
What's Al-Anon? What is that?
Al-Anon. Have you heard of Alcoholics Anonymous or 12-step programs?
Yes, I have.
It's kind of like, it's basically, they created a program for families and loved ones because of what guys like me, Ben the addict, did to them. Think about that. So you get the opportunity as a family member to also work a 12-step program. Because let me ask you something. I like putting it in this perspective. A lot of times I'll ask families, I'm going to ask you, Pam, what is your drug of choice?
My drug of choice is helping my son.
You are spot on. You must have been listening to podcasts for 4 years.
That's what I've learned. Yes.
How much time, energy, and resources have you spent trying to keep him, quote unquote, safe?
All of 100% of what I do in my life is consumed by my son.
And just like an addict or an alcoholic trying to control their alcoholism or their addiction, you're trying to control his. It's the same thing. All the time, the energy, the resources, the sleepless nights, the consequences. You've probably spent money you haven't had to spend, etc. Mm-hmm. Maybe he stole money from you. The list goes on. But, Al-Anon, going back to your original question, will help you navigate all that. And kind of like as I was bringing up, start setting healthy boundaries. So within this phone call, what we're going to want to do is we want to help you navigate and set up a situation that is ideal for him to finally say on his own cognizance, hey, I'm willing to go to treatment when presented with that idea. We need to accomplish a couple things prior to that happening. We need to, before asking him, definitely have a plan in place. Maybe, Tom, you want to elaborate on why it's important to have a plan in place first.
Yeah, but let me ask you, Pam, based off of what Ben just said, do you feel like this is something, because you said that you've had a hard time. It's easy for you to set these boundaries, but you have a hard time holding up to them. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you foresee being able to change?
I think I can navigate it. Maybe if you could give me some insight on to that, but I definitely can.
Okay.
Can I give some insight on that?
Sure.
I meant to bring this up. So here's how we're going to help you navigate it. We're going to hit you with the truth. And I hate saying this to parents. I really do. But the only way that we're going to help your son get better, what's his name?
Travis.
The only way that we're going to help Travis get better is by looking at the truth about the situation. Now, the reality of the situation is alcohol can be deadly, right?
Right.
Fentanyl can absolutely be deadly, right?
Right.
Now, he is continuing to use alcohol and drugs under your roof.
Right.
Your goal is to keep him safe. Am I correct?
Correct.
Has that, and I'm just going to hit it like it is. You have the fear of him, you said it earlier, being on the street, being without a place, etc., out in the cold. Now, he is just as likely to overdose and die from this illness in your house as he is on the street. That dynamic does not change no matter where he is. The reality of the situation, as long as he's putting alcohol and fentanyl in his body, that likelihood is very high. So whether he's doing that under your roof or on the street doesn't make a difference. But let me ask you a question. Thinking about everything that we've talked about, which place do you think he's more likely to be uncomfortable and more willing to make a change?
I'm not sure. Can you give me the answer to that?
I would think on the street.
I would think so too.
When I'm out in the elements and I have to provide for myself and nobody's giving me any money and I have the choice between my next, cap of fentanyl. Cap is like a little 10 spot. I don't know what they cost these days. Or a cheeseburger and I'm starving.
Right.
I might take that fentanyl a couple times the first times, but when I get hungry enough, that cheeseburger is going to start to sound awfully good. And all of a sudden I have to make a decision. Cheeseburger, fentanyl. And I know that's like a simple example, but the reality of the situation is every human being needs their basic necessities met first. Food, shelter.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So you're saying, if he's out, no resources, he can't just come home to a warm home and a nice, comfy bed, he'll be more willing to make sacrifices or want to change to be out of that situation of being on the street or being homeless or getting robbed or whatever might happen when he's out there.
Yeah. And so I would ask this too, Pam, your husband, do you feel like he would be on the same page?
My husband?
Is he more, because Ben and I have had thousands of conversations with parents, and generally speaking, how they work, the mom has the hard time setting the boundaries and keeping the boundaries. The dads, and this isn't all the time, but this is just based off of our experience, dads are more, I don't care at this point. Whatever has to happen, I've kind of washed my hands of it.
That's where we're at. He doesn't, at this point, he's kind of just checked out, and either way, I don't think would care. He would support my decision either way, but we also are having marital issues because we also fight about me being the enabler to our son.
Yeah.
And the situation just keeps getting worse. So, our relationship's also affected by the whole situation.
Has he ever said anything to you in the tune of, you're going to have to pick one day, either me or our son?
Yes. Most recently, we've had that conversation.
Yeah, it's super. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's common. These oftentimes I equate it to the addict is kind of like a hurricane. And Ben and I are in South Florida. You're in where? You're somewhere in cold weather, I assume.
In Michigan.
Michigan. Yeah. No, thank you. Anyways, Ben and I, we're in South Florida. We get hit with a lot of hurricanes. Now, if you've ever experienced a hurricane, there's the eye of the storm, right? And generally speaking, that is where the most damage is, right? Your Travis right now is the eye of the storm, okay? But in a hurricane, you have these outer bands, right? Have you ever, being from Michigan, I don't know, have you heard of outer bands? Okay. Not outer banks, outer bands. An outer band, when it comes and hits, it's pretty aggressive. But when that outer band goes away, it's calm. It's quiet. And you think, oh, we're through the storm. And then all of a sudden, boom, another outer band comes. And then it's calm. It's quiet. And then another one, right? And so that's a lot of times what this is like when it comes to dealing with an addict, because there are periods of calmness and, mom and dad, and maybe you can relate to this, maybe not, but things seem to be getting a little bit better. Me or you and your husband, maybe things are going to work out this time, and then boom, another outer band. The longer that this takes place, the further and further this wedge is getting driven between you and your husband, and it will end up getting to a point where that wedge can't come out. And so, going back to like what Ben was saying, you as self-admitted, you are by far the more enabling one. You have to be okay with coming up with these boundaries, which will help you do, but you have to be able to hold the boundaries. Can you do that?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Ben, anything else before we move on?
No.
Okay. I'm telling you, Pam, it's on you. Dad is going to do his thing. All right. So it's on you, but now we'll come up with a plan. All right.
Okay.
Let me ask you, in your perfect scenario, what does a plan look like for your son?
Like, what do you mean? I don't know what you mean.
If you could forecast out the next 120 days for your son in terms of him getting clean and sober, what would that look like?
For us, it would be getting him to a place or a facility or whatever that might be. I've heard on the podcast about, different facilities, inpatient, outpatient, and just putting him in a full continuum of care and eventually getting him just to get the basic life's necessities foundation as like a framework for him. And then, I know there's work we will have to do as a family long term, but we need that starting point for us.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. So between you and your husband, you are both in agreement that he needs to go away somewhere for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
You're not under the illusion that he can just go and do detox in, a couple weeks or 28 days. A lot of people saw the movie 28 Days Later,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen that? No. Well, it's
Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
No.
For real? All right.
But I have listened to the podcast and have learned that a couple things. One, it's not really good for them to stay in the place where they're actively using because of triggers and being around those people. So they need a timeout from their situation. So it's better for them to go away, correct, from that situation if we have the means or the opportunity is there. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. And we understand that a short detox stay or a 28-day stay isn't going to change 10, 15 years of habits and addiction, that it's going to be a very, very long process for change.
Well, I'll tell you, it sounds like we have a lot of conversations with parents and they seem to think that, their loved one can go away for a few weeks and everything will be okay. So it sounds like you've done, you know enough about this to know what the right decisions are. And I think as far as a plan goes, that's something that Ben and I can walk you through. There's not a whole lot that goes into this.
Okay.
And so what we want to do is we want to make this easy, seamless, not a whole lot of decisions that need to be made. Whether your son ends up coming to us or going to another facility, it doesn't matter to us as long as he gets somewhere, because obviously he's underneath your roof. And so as long as he's there, nothing good's going to come out of this. All right. So in terms of a plan, this is what I recommend. I recommend that we could tell you all about our program. On top of us telling you about our program, I would encourage you to look at a couple other programs, right? Now, you've been listening to the podcast. You kind of know who we are, and obviously you probably have a strong pull for him to come to us, which is great. Like, we're flattered, but I would say go check out another, or at least make the phone calls, call a couple other places, and then kind of see what your thoughts and feelings are around those places. Okay.
And how do I do that? Do I just Google treatment, or
Google?
how do I know where my son needs to go? Do I Google detox centers or outpatient centers, or do most places have full continuum of care?
You could just go on Google and type in addiction treatment centers for my son.
Okay.
Substance abuse treatment center for my son.
Okay.
And Google's going to spit out a bunch of different options, and, click and call a couple and see what they have to say. And I will tell you this, I don't know of any treatment centers that do what we do in terms of having the podcast and, just all in all our program. I think, obviously Ben and I are biased. We think we're the best, but there's obviously a lot of good programs out there.
Okay.
So I want you to do that, but part of this process obviously is the resources side of things, which does involve insurance. Does he have health insurance?
Yes, we have health insurance.
Is it through an employer?
It's through my employer.
Oh, what do you do? We didn't even get that. I didn't ask you that. Although I guess it didn't really pay much point to the conversation. But what do you do, Pam?
I'm a nurse.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. At a hospital? Mm-hmm. Cool. Do you get a lot of overdoses in the hospital?
Oh, yes.
So this is something that you obviously see daily.
Correct.
It's got to be tough seeing it with your own son.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to distinguish between the two. It's like seeing my own child in the hospital.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, all right. What insurance does he have?
Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan.
Okay. All right. Ben, do you have anything up to this point for Pam?
No, I was just thinking next steps here.
Well, next steps is, the plan, which we're going to put in place.
Right.
So here's what we'll do as far as next steps. Generally speaking, what we do moving forward, Tom brought up the resources available. In this case, you have insurance. So what we need to do on our end is do what's called a verification of benefits. So we're going to call into the insurance company, see what benefits are available as far as substance abuse, mental health goes. And I always tell parents, like, hey, if we can't help you directly at Rock, I'll do my best to help you indirectly. In this case, being that it's alcohol and fentanyl, you asked about levels of care. He will be needing detox when it comes to alcohol and fentanyl. Is that what I said? Yeah. So in the case of both alcohol and benzodiazepines, those are the two where he would have to go to detox. Why? Because those could be fatal. Now, fentanyl, I'm also going to say he has to go to detox based off of the fact that if you put him into a program at a lower level of care, going through the withdrawals, he'll never succeed. Mm-hmm. Point blank, it's so uncomfortable that, he'll be throwing up, etc., and very, very sick and not able to participate. So we have to get him to a detox. So what we're going to do on our end, if you're okay with it, Pam, is we'll run this verification of benefits. We'll find out what's available to him. And part of what we do as being tied into the field as well as we are, we know a lot of people, and we are going to figure out a detox that would be most appropriate for this situation, both based off of resources and off of the situation that you've explained that we feel is a best fit. Now, could you find a detox up by you? But yes, in this case, I tell you, I like working with the ones that I know personally because I've got a rapport with them. Very oftentimes, I know staff firsthand. Many of the places that I work with as far as the detoxes go and have relationships with, I can walk right into the front door of, check on the client. I can make a phone call. We can get the med records, all that. So if it's okay with you, we'll run this verification of benefits.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So you're going to send over the front and back of your insurance card with your full name and date of birth and Travis's full name and date of birth. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, Ben and I, we've done enough talking.
Okay.
I know, given the situation, you probably have a ton of questions.
Yes.
The floor is yours. Whatever questions that you have, ask us and we'll answer.
Okay. I just have a couple questions about the insurance thing. So before I called in, would it have been a good idea for me to maybe call my insurance myself to see if I even have benefits that would cover treatment?
You can. You don't necessarily need to. I mean, if you send us the card, we'll be able to tell in a matter of a half an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do I know, what is in-network versus an out-of-network treatment facility? How do I know the difference? What does that mean?
So, do you want me to take this one?
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay.
I'm curious what you'll say.
In-network and out-of-network, again, and for the sake of this conversation, Pam, I don't want to get too far into the weeds. So I'm going to give you the very basics.
Okay, perfect.
In-network, these treatment centers contract with said insurance company. So in this situation, this treatment center A has a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield at a negotiated rate. Okay. They agree that, hey, Blue Cross says we're going to pay you X amount of dollars for these particular services provided. Treatment Center A says, okay, that sounds good. They have a working contract with one another. In turn of it being in network with a treatment facility, they're going to have more of a funnel of clients coming their way because it's from an insurance company's best interest for them to have their customers, I suppose, go to in-network facilities because that negotiated rate, generally speaking, is a lot cheaper. It doesn't cost the insurance company as much.
Okay.
So some treatment centers agree that it's part of their business model is to go in network with a lot of different insurance companies because it's a steady flow of clientele. Because Blue Cross is, if you call up your insurance company right now, if you call Blue Cross and say, hey, I need a list of treatment centers that I can send my son to, they're going to give you a list of in-network providers.
Okay.
Because they want you to go there. Now, if you have out-of-network benefits, this basically means, which we're an out-of-network provider, we do not contract with any insurance companies, okay? And the reason that we don't do that is because we don't need to do that, right? We've kept our facility small. We're able to treat the clients longer because an out-of-network provider, they generally speaking in the treatment world, they get provided more days in terms of length of stay for treatment. The reimbursement rates are generally a little bit higher. And it's overall just it's a more quality treatment because we're not a network provider. Now, where that doesn't work in our benefit is if you call Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're not going to put us on as a recommendation for you to send Travis to.
Okay.
Because it's not in their best interest. They're going to have to pay more money.
Okay.
For you to send Travis here. But reality is that you're paying the premiums to have a PPO plan, an out-of-network plan. Mm-hmm. And so utilize it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Perfect. Thank you.
Then how did that make sense?
I'll give a very simple analogy that sometimes I use with families. For instance, I had my pickup truck. I got rear-ended. The insurance company said, hey, we'll fix it. We're in contract with Mechanic Joe down the road. Mechanic Joe doesn't do the best work, but the insurance company got a good rate with them.
Okay.
And I say, no, I want genuine Toyota parts back on I want Toyota to fix it. And they're like, no, well, that's going to end up blah, 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 blah. No, I want my Toyota parts. I pay my premium. Okay, if that's what you like, sir, we'll see if we can make that happen. Guess what? Got my work done by Toyota. I know it's quality. I know it's the right parts. It's not generic, etc. It comes down to, in my opinion, quality. Now, keep in mind, maybe I'm going a little further than I need to for the sake of this conversation. But generally speaking, you are, like Tom was saying, going to get a higher quality treatment with out-of-network providers. Being that, on average, they do get paid more per client, but that means that caseloads are lower. So where a therapist at an in-network facility might have 15 clients,
okay,
if you use your out-of-network benefits, you may be at a facility where the therapist only has 8 clients. They have double the time to see your son.
Okay, that makes
so
sense.
if that makes sense, it's I always paint a picture like that.
Okay, thank you. And what about deductibles? Will you tell me if I have a deductible I have to pay?
Yeah, we'll tell you all that information.
Okay.
I mean, the thing, the verification of benefits will give us all the information that we need, and then I'll call you and tell you. Okay. But if you have a deductible, you have a deductible. I mean, there's really no way around it.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't understand deductibles. Do you understand deductibles and what that means?
I don't. What does that mean?
Okay. Thank you for asking. So a deductible, basically, say for instance, you said you have Blue Cross Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I just so happened to get your verification back, Pam. You have a $5,000 deductible. That means that he's going to, Travis is going to be going to detox first. So prior to getting to detox, he's going to need to pay that $5,000 deductible. Before the detox gets reimbursed anything. Does that make sense? So basically, you're covering the first $5,000 of the treatment. Now, if that detox ends up costing, I'm just going to throw a random number out there. Please don't take this as the gospel. But if the entire detox costs $20,000, that means that you had to pay your $5,000, and they're going to cover the remaining $15,000. The nice part is, being that it's January, once your deductible's met, it's met for the year. Okay. So you won't have to pay that until it resets the following year. But maybe a little more info than you needed right now, but that's how that works.
What if I can't afford, the deductible? What if my deductible is like $15,000, or is there just absolutely no way around that at all? Like, we'll have to figure something else out.
It really depends on the situation. I mean, there's some detoxes will work with you.
Okay.
With the deductible. If it's that high, you may be forced to go into an in-network facility, because an in-network facility, generally speaking, your deductible is going to be about half of what your out-of-network deductible is. So go ahead.
Let me revert back to what I said in the beginning of our conversation, Pam. I always tell people, if we can't help them directly, we'll do our best to help indirectly. So there are in-network options, and some people don't have out-of-network benefits with their insurance to begin with. And let me just throw it out there. We would still like the opportunity to be able to help you. You've been an avid listener for 4 years. We don't mind taking some time out of our day to help point you in the right direction. So there, again, coming back to the fact that Tom and I, we've been working in the field for 11 years apiece, 22 combined. We know a lot of facilities. We have a lot of contacts. And I don't want to paint a picture like there aren't some quality in-network programs out there. I will always 100% of the time recommend an out-of-network program. However, I don't want to make it seem like there's not good in-network programs as well. And we'll help point you in the right direction of those. Generally, the deductible for in-network is lower than the out-of-network, or they're more willing to work with you.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? I have to talk to my son.
Don't do that yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So will you tell me what's next?
No, I don't want you.
I had another question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. What if I call around and I don't really like any of the in-network providers that I find, and maybe an out-of-network, I don't have out-of-network benefits if we find that out. Is there cash pay rates?
Yeah.
And are they generally actually like lower than like insurance rates? Or how does that work?
It depends. I mean, our cash pay rates, I've seen places that charge as the most expensive I've seen is around 75 to 80,000 for 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've seen 124,000.
Really? Where was that at?
California?
I shouldn't say the name.
Oh,
But it's
well,
local.
no, but
What state?
it is local?
Oh, yeah.
Florida?
Wow.
Very
Jeez.
high end. Very high end.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need to be. Why do you have 124,000, Pam?
I
you
do
wanna-
not.
Okay.
I don't have that kind of money.
And let me throw something out there, bringing that up. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on a trail here. But remember what we're looking for. Clinical competency. Now, could the place that's $124,000 a month be like a spa? Sure, it could. But if you're going to call that place as somebody that has those resources, I'd be asking about clinical competency versus how many times a day they get a massage and a steam room treatment, whatever that is.
Yeah, a lot of these facilities that charge astronomical amounts of money in the $70,000 for 30-day range, which we're nowhere near that, Pam.
Okay.
But let's look at the insurance first before we even discuss self-pay rates. But a lot of these places, it's more just kind of luxury, they wine and dine you, give you a place to sleep at night, feed you lobster tails and, massages and those sorts of things.
More of a vacation than it is.
Listen, any place is better than no place, but, it goes back to like what Ben was saying. Are we just kind of feeding into what they've been used to their whole entire life? Because a big part of this whole recovery process is about getting uncomfortable. Okay. And if you can't get uncomfortable in treatment, then it may not be the place for you.
Okay.
But you did say, do you have any other questions or?
No, I have a lot of questions, but we can cover that down the line.
Okay. So you said that you wanted to talk to your son first,
Yes.
and I cut you off there. Why do you think I cut you off there?
I'm not sure. Can you help me?
Yeah, we need to come up with a plan first.
Okay. What's the plan?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
When we come up with this plan, we're going to look at the insurance, and Ben and I will call you back and say, look, based off of the insurance, this is what we feel like is going to be the best plan.
Okay.
I'll tell you at that point if it makes sense for him to come to us. We'll go over all the financials. This is in order for Travis to come to us. This is what we're looking at that it would cost. If that makes sense, great. We'll take next steps. If not, these are some options that he could look into, possibly, in-network options and stuff like that.
Okay.
When we come up with that plan, let us walk you through talking to your son. I don't want you just walking up to his room and saying, hey, Travis, you're going to treatment, pack your bag. Okay, because it generally doesn't work well that way, but we'll walk you through that stuff when we get there.
Okay. That sounds good.
Sound good? Mm-hmm. All right, so you text over the information. As soon as we get it, I'll give you a call back.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good.
All right, bye.
Click.
And
bye.
we'll continue the conversation once we have a plan about maybe you guys can give me some insight on what I need to ask before even going into a program and about the programs and the structure and everything else down the line.
Well, and we're going to cover that on another episode.
Okay, perfect.
And I've talked about this on previous episodes that I think on a couple I've just done myself, really. Like, what are some core key questions that you should be asking a treatment center when you call them? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times parents ask questions that don't even, they're not relevant. And they're not asking it because they genuinely, they don't know.
Exactly. That you don't know until you've actually have been immersed in it and know what's going on, and you find out after the fact.
And Ben, you brought one up, which is caseload. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very important question to ask.
That means, just in case listeners don't know what caseload is, that means how many clients is one therapist assigned.
Right.
So
yeah, because we've seen the three of us. We've seen treatment centers with therapists carrying a caseload. I've seen more than 15. I've seen upwards 20 to 25 on a caseload. Now, you break that down mathematically, technically speaking, they're supposed to see each client for 1 hour once a week. That's 25 hours just in sessions, and you have to do your notes, which equates, generally speaking, another, 30 minutes?
To an hour,
To an hour in addition in charting. So
charting's a lot.
we try and keep our caseloads in between 8 and 10.
And asking group size. I have a family member that worked for a treatment center, and he was facilitating some groups and said they have 45 clients in a group.
Yeah.
What are you getting out of that? These are important things to ask, and
yeah. Well, and the sad thing is, and this is, again, something that's kind of trial and error. A lot of these big treatment centers, you get reverted to a call center, and the call center reps, some of them probably don't even know. They just tell you what they've been told to tell you. And, it's very individualized care, and we're very client focused. And they come up with all these mumbo jumbo words. And if you start pressing them and asking them questions about specifics, one of two things is going to happen. One, they're going to outright lie to you because they don't know the answer, or they're going to say, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out and I'll get back to you. And the latter of the two is the one that you want to hear.
I think it's important to add, though, I'd like to put in there that, people have different resources. And right now, just to be frank, I feel like we're talking about ideals. We are. I'll be straightforward. I'm biased like Tom and Dr. T. I think we're the best place in the world. But with that being said, just to be perfectly frank, not everybody has the right insurance to come here. It's a plan that we can't take, etc. So, for instance, I'll use Medicaid, Medicare as an example. There are facilities out there that people have Medicaid, Medicare, I want to thank them for opening those facilities and offering the best that they can. And people can get sober anywhere. I've been to state-funded facilities myself, where there was one that I went to. I didn't know that facilities existed the way that they did. I went to one locally in West Palm where you bang on this big metal door to get in, and they yell at you through this little speaker, like, no beds available, sit on the bench. And you just sit there until they're like, you won't see somebody come out, and they're like, bed available, next up. But
Gosh.
literally, jail was better
Yeah.
than this place. But at the time, like, I had every intention of trying to get clean. I didn't stay clean that time. I'll throw that out there, but I wanted it. So I didn't care what that place was. I had the willingness. It was better than being on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's I just want to throw it out there that, you know, resources play a part, you know, and people can't get sober anywhere.
Yeah.
Just if I'm Mom Pam on the phone, I want my son to have the best chance possible, the best, you know, naturally. I want him to have the best therapist, the best doctor, best clinical team, etc.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
You got to be mom. Anything else?
No, I could go on and on.
Any
I've been on the phone all day with calls like this.
yeah.
So it's good.
No, and you know what's nice about this, and this for the listener. I don't know why I'm saying this, but this is role playing here. But like, there is really something very humanistic about these phone calls too. Like, you know, while what we were doing is, I wouldn't call it scripted because we're kind of doing it on the fly.
I think we did pretty good.
Dr. T had some questions that she knew ahead of time she was going to ask somewhat, but you know, every situation's a little bit different, and you know, you won't feel like you're talking to a bunch of robots. I promise you.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Good tea.
Good. We should have another episode on all the follow-up questions. I think that'd be good information to put out there too.
Yeah, we will for sure. Soon. And then within the next 2 weeks, that episode will come out. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.